Not many people really understand emissions trading. So can you explain it to us, how it reduces carbon emissions?
Well, it's a sort of an incentive-based policy that is designed to limit emissions, so cap emissions across the sources of emissions that are included in the system, and to gradually reduce them over time. But the reason it's incentive-based is that if you can reduce beyond the limit, so keep reducing more than you have to, you can create credits that are available to sell. And the innovation in it is that by selling them, you can help pay for the technology that brought the emissions down. So it's an innovative tool in that respect, because when you apply it across a whole bunch of sources, it allows the industry as a whole to bring emissions down in the places that are cheapest to reduce. So it keeps the cost down for everybody.
How has it worked in the countries where it's been implemented?
So emissions trading really grew up in the United States in solving the problem of acid rain. And that was the tool used by a Republican president working with a Democratic Congress that sort of brought together the economic efficiency that the Republicans wanted and the environmental performance that the Democrats were looking for. So it was first, in my mind, known as a political success for bridging partisan differences. And it worked in that program. It's maybe the only part of the Clean Air Act amendments in 1990 that not only happened on schedule, but happened ahead of schedule and brought emissions down much lower than the predicted cost. So based on that experience, first the UK, and then Denmark, and then the European Union as a whole adopted it as the main policy element in Europe for heavy industry. It's not the only policy used, because there are a lot of energy efficiency programs and renewable energy programs that are also part of the mix, and there's research and development on long-term technologies, things like that. But the centerpiece really of European carbon policy is an emissions trading program that applies to the big emitters, so power companies that have coal-fired power plant or natural gas-fired power plants or oil-fired power plants. It also covers the steel industry, cement industry, oil refineries, so big, heavy emitters. And what that program has done is to put those companies on a trajectory that brings their emissions down gradually over time. From 1990 levels, the aim is to get 20% below by 2020 and to continue stepping down. So each year, the targets get a little tighter. I think it's 1.74% tighter per year, going out far into the future.
Why isn't everyone doing it if it's working so effectively?
Well, Europe has been the trendsetter, and as I look around the world, and I travel around the world working with companies that are involved in these systems, it is popping up in a lot of other places. Right now there is a system in place in Australia, although there's a conservative government, they're called the Liberal Party there, but the conservative government that wants to change the approach. We don't exactly know how they'll change it and what the new approach will be. But as you go around other parts of the world, there's serious emission reductions being achieved in California. There's a program in the northeastern U.S. that's using cap and trade inside the U.S., both of those programs. China has 7 pilot programs. One of them has already begun to trade. 2 more are scheduled to start by the end of the year. There's 7 pilots in all that cover 250 million people. So it's a big program in China to gain experience in how it should work in a Chinese context, with a view to bringing a national system online sometime related to these negotiations between the 2015 and 2020 period. So as I look around, there are a lot of countries that are exploring how it would work for them, but they're interested in getting some more clarity out of this process, I think, and also just some more hands-on experience with how it'll work in their context.
How could it move talks forward at this meeting?
Well, I think the grand bargain has always been about, with the right amount of flexibility in a system to reduce emissions cost effectively, you might be able to get people to agree to greater targets. Or as some people think of emissions trading as part of the key to unlocking ambition. Because if you know you're not going to have the tools to achieve cost-effective reductions with trading, then you're probably not going to commit to do as much. Whereas if you have a broad system that allows you to access international reductions anywhere that is cheap, then that could enable things to countries to commit to do more.
For it to be really useful, doesn't it need to be in place or certainly being set up by 2015 so that it can help an ambitious global deal be drawn up?
Well, I think we would like to see that, and we would like to see at these talks for the framework for various approaches to be elaborated to help bring tools to developing countries that are interested in establishing systems so that they can gain confidence with it and really be ready for the next phase of activity, the next wave of activity, if you will, in reducing emissions around the world. So we want that to happen before 2015, and that's part of why we're here. Is we would like to see the framework agreed here, and we would like to see a new market mechanism elaborated here so that business would know when and how to invest, and we would like to see the CDM, which a lot of smaller countries are continuing to use. We'd like to see it get better and sort of fit for new purposes going out into the far beyond 2020. But these talks seem to be a little stalled right now, but that's normal for this part of the first week of negotiations. And I think they're stalled around a lot of the detail about how that would work and about how you orchestrate it in terms of other negotiations in this process toward a big package for Paris in 2015.
When do you think we'll see carbon trading used all across the world?
I think we, in a way, see it already, because if you look at all of the countries that gained experience in the CDM, which is borrowing a part of the emission trading architecture, at least on a project basis, when you look at that, it is far-flung. It's been used widely across the world, 7,000 projects throughout the world. Many of those projects are still looking for a buyer because they came into operation only in recent times when demand has fallen because of the world economic crisis. But I would say we're going to see it continue to grow, and my expectation is by 2020 we should have a vibrant system that has emission trading programs on every continent.